Hey guys, time to go over your expressions and equations study guide. I would suggest that you go ahead and do the study guide first, check it with the answer key, and then anything that you missed or need an explanation for, I would come back and watch those questions on this video. So go ahead and do that now if you haven't already, and then come back when you're ready to check. All right, I'll go ahead and get started with the first section. You should be able to add and subtract expressions. And when we look at an expression like number one, we see 9p has a subtract 8 and a plus 8. I'm looking for like terms, and since I see no other p, I have to keep my 9p in my answer. And I know that -8 plus 8 is 0 pairs, so that cancels. All that leaves me with is the 9p. Let's look at number two. I have 5d and I have a minus d. Those are like terms. So like think about if I had 5 donuts, take away 1 donut, I'm left with 4 donuts. And then you want to just put your numbers together. So I have a -7 plus 4. That gets me to a -3. So your final answer could be 4d minus 3 or 4d plus -3. Both of those are the same expression. On number three, I'm adding expressions with rational coefficients. They're fractions next to the s. I'm going to do it the same way. So I see s's go with s's, and I can add 3/4 of an s and 1/4 of an s because that makes one whole s. And then I want to add that to the 1/2. So I have 1.5 s's. All the s's get combined because they're all like terms. I can't add that 4 to it because it's a number all by itself, not s's. So my final answer should be 1.5 s's plus 4. You could have also put 1.5 s plus 4. Let's look at number 4. Same thing, this time it's just with decimals. I look at for c's, and I know c's go with other c's. So I have 7.8 minus 3.4. That gets me to 4.4c, since that's how many c's there are. Now I see that there's a p here. P doesn't go with anything, so I have to bring that down. So plus 6p. And then that -10 doesn't go with anything, so I got to have -10 in my answer. I know I'm done here because there's no other like terms that can be combined. On number 5, they're all y's, so I know that I can combine all of these terms together. But since there's so many, I'm just going to go one at a time. So I'm going to start with -9 plus 5. That gets me to -4y. Next, I want to take 7y's away from that. So -4y minus 7y. It's just like saying -4 minus 7. When I do that, I'm at -11. That's how many y's I have. Then I got one more thing. I got to go up 3. So plus 3y's. And I can put those together because they are like terms. And that lands me at -8y's. For number 6, I see k's and I see numbers. So when I have 8k's and I have -11 or -11k's, I can put those together. 8 minus 11 is -3, and that's how many k's there are. And then I want to put my numbers together. So a +4 and a +9. Those can combine and they make 13. So -3k plus 13 would be my final answer. And I can't simplify any further because these are not like terms. Let's look at the next section. These are all about distributing and factoring. When you distribute, you multiply the number on the outside by each thing on the inside. So 2.5 times r is just 2.5r, since we don't know what the r is. 2.5 times -1 is -2.5. And even if you just did 2.5 times 1, you just drop that minus down. You can't combine these because they are not like terms. Let's look at number 8. I'm going to distribute that -8 to each one of those terms on the inside. Before I do that, I just want to rewrite this because I don't put minus, I put plus negative. That's because that is not a +9, that's a -9. That's going to make a difference in your answer. So 8 times 3 is 24, and it's a negative times a positive, so your answer will be negative. And that's how many f's there are. And you need to do -8 times -9. That is a +72. So your final answer should be -24f plus 72. And I can't simplify any more because they are not like terms. In number 9, it doesn't matter if that number on the outside of the parentheses is on this side or this side. It doesn't matter. It's still being multiplied to each one of these on the inside. So 4 times t is 4t plus the 4 times p, which is just 4p. For 10 through 12, you're factoring. So factoring is like reverse distributing. You're dividing out the number that goes into both of them. Think about greatest common factor. Think about the biggest number that goes into 2 and 2. That would be 2. So if I divide out a 2 from that, I'm left with just x plus y. If I take out the 2, I'm left with 1x and 1y. On 11, I'm looking for the greatest common factor between 6 and 15. This number is 3, because 3 goes into both of those. And you could take out a positive 3 or a negative 3. I would take out a negative 3 to make my life easier. So if I take out a negative 3, I'm left on the inside with 2b, because 3 times 2 is 6, and negative times a positive is negative. That's how I would have got that 6. And then on the inside, since I got a negative, I can make that positive, and that number is going to be 5. Again, 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So anytime you're factoring, you could always check your answer. On number 12, I see a 10 and a 25. I know that 5 is the greatest common factor between those numbers, so I'm going to factor out a positive 5 on this one. Take out a positive 5, you're left with 2c on the inside minus 5. And that would be it. For these 4 questions, we are going to be rewriting expressions in different forms. Basically, we're just going to do what we can do. We're going to try to simplify these as best as we can. So number 13, I see a 5 on the outside of parentheses. That's my biggest clue that I need to distribute. When you see a number on that side of parentheses, you need to multiply it by each term on the inside. So 5 times b is 5b, plus 5 times 6, which is 30, and you have that minus 3b on the outside. Now I'm going to look and see if I can simplify this by combining any like terms. I see 5b and a minus 3b. 5 minus 3 is 2, and that's how many b's I have, plus that number 30. This is as simple as I can go because they are not like terms. Number 14, I also see parentheses and a number on the outside, so I'm going to distribute. That is a negative 1/2. That's a minus 1/2, which is the same as a negative 1/2. Keep that sign next to it because that's going to make a difference in your answer. So I have negative 1/2 of 4. So half of 4 is 2, and it's a negative times a positive, so it's negative. And that's how many y's there are. So I just did negative 1/2 times 4y. Now I have negative 1/2 times negative 16. Again, that minus in front of the 16 tells you that it's a negative. Same thing if I'd written it as plus negative 16. Half of 16 is 8, and since it's negative times a negative, that is a positive. So there's a plus in front of that. And then on the outside, we have not done anything with that 8y yet, so I'm going to bring that down. When I do that, you should be able to see pretty clearly that these are like terms. They're both y's. You have 8y minus 2y. That leaves you with 6y's plus a positive 8. I cannot combine these anymore because they are not like terms. For number 15, I took out all the minuses and replaced them with plus negatives. I never write minus, I write plus negative. I add the opposite. I do that because this is a negative 2 being distributed to each one of these terms on the inside. Negative 2 times a is negative 2a, and negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6. I didn't do anything with that 9a, so I'm just going to bring that down. And then I'm going to combine any like terms that I see. So I see 9a minus 2a, or plus negative 2a, and that is 7a, plus the number 6. I know I'm done because these are terms that cannot be combined because they are not like terms. Question 16 is about perimeter. Perimeter is like a fence. It's like all the outsides added up of a shape. So since x plus 2 is going to be the same on this side of the rectangle, I can just take 2 times x plus 2, since again, there's 2 of those. So there's 2 x plus 2's. I'm going to add that to the 2x minus 3. But again, there's 2 of those, one on this side and one on this side. So I'm going to write that as 2 times 2x minus 3. Now that is the expression for the perimeter of this rectangle. However, it is not the most simplified expression because I can distribute that 2 to each one of those terms on the inside and this 2 to each of those terms on the inside. When I do that, I got 2x plus 4 plus 4x plus negative 6 or minus 6. This is still not simplified because I still see that there are x's that can be combined. So I have 2x's plus 4x's, which makes 6x's. And then I have numbers that go with other numbers. So I have positive 4 plus a negative 6. That's going to make negative 2. My final expression is 6x minus 2. And I cannot combine that any further because they are not like terms. So you could have had 6x minus 2 or 6x plus negative 2. Same thing. For the next set of questions, we're solving two-step equations. So the first thing I do when I see an equation is draw my line down the equals. I find my variable, and I think what operations are being done to the x. I see it's times negative 5, then add 9. Since I'm working backwards and trying to undo the operations, I need to start getting rid of that positive 9 or the plus 9. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract 9. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So what I'm left with on the left side of the equation is my negative 5x, and that equals 24 minus 9, which is 15. Now I'm left with a times -5 on the x side. I know it's times because it's a number next to a letter. So I'm going to divide by the -5 to cancel it. Makes one x left. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. 15 divided by 5 is 3, and it's a positive divided by a negative. So the answer will be negative, and x equals -3 is my final answer because I'm left with one variable and one number. You could always plug it back into the original equation to check. Since -5 times -3 is 15, and 15 plus 9 equals 24, I know I did my equation correctly. Looking at number 18, I see an equation, so I draw my line down the equals. I see if I knew what x was, I would divide by 2 and then subtract 7. Since I'm undoing the equation, I'm going to start with any addition or subtraction first. So I'm going to get rid of that -7 with a +7. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. -7 plus 7 cancels out. That makes 0. So I'm left with x over 2 on the left. On the right, I can do -10 plus 7. That gets me to -3. Now I'm trying to get rid of that divide by 2. I know that the opposite of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. That leaves me with 1x on the left and -3 times 2 on the right, which is -6. I can plug that back into my original equation. Since -6 divided by 2 is -3, and -3 minus 7 is -10, I know I solved my equation correctly. On number 19, I see an equation, so I'm going to draw my line down the equals. I see x is being multiplied by 3 and then added to 12. So I'm going to have to work backwards. I'll start at addition and subtraction. Since I see a plus 12, I need to get rid of it with a minus 12. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. 12 minus 12 is 0, so I can cross it out, and I'm left with 3x equals 48 minus 12, which is 36. Now I'm thinking, what number times 3 equals 36? To figure this out, this is the same thing as dividing by 3. And again, since I see a times 3, I'm going to do the opposite, divide by 3. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I'm left with 1x equals 36 divided by 3, which is positive 12. I can plug that back into check. 12 goes back into the original equation for x. 3 times 12, 36, plus 12 is 48. So I know I solved my equation correctly. Number 20, I see is an equation, so I'm going to draw my line down the equals. I see that there is a multiplication and a subtraction. I'm going in reverse order of PEMDAS, so I'm going to get rid of my addition and subtraction first. I'm getting rid of a minus 10, so I need to add 10 to get rid of that. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So on the left, I'm left with -6x, and that equals 20 plus 10, which is 30. Now I need to get rid of that times -6. That's a number next to the letter, so that's a times. So I need to get rid of that with a division. So I got to divide by -6. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So now I'm left with 1x on the left equals 30 divided by 6, which is 5, and a positive divided by a negative, which is negative. So x is -5. I can check that by plugging in -5 back into the original equation. -6 times -5 is positive 30. 30 minus 10 is 20. 20 is 20, so I did it right. On number 21, I see an equation, so I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equals. I look for my x, and I see a few operations being done, first of which is that -9 or the -9. I need to get rid of that -9 so I can get x by itself. The way to get rid of a -9 is with a +9 or with a +9. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So I have 19 equals, and pay attention to this, -1x. There's only one x there, and it's a negative or a minus, so I'm going to have to write that as -1x. When you see that, hopefully it rings some bells in your mind that it looks just like this one now, or this one now, or this one. It looks like that because it's a times -1. And if you want to get rid of a times -1, you have to divide by -1. You have to do it on both sides, and 19 divided by -1 is -19. That's what x equals. If you plug that back into your original equation, -9 minus -19, you should see Bob. There's a little plus because minus negative means plus. So -9 plus 19 does give you 10. That's how you know that your answer is -19. The last two-step equation, you draw your line on the equal sign, get rid of the +5 first with a -5, and you have to do it to both sides. So you're left with x over 4 on the left equals 20. Now see the x is being divided by 4, so I've got to undo that. I got to get rid of a divide by 4. The opposite of division is multiplication, so I'm going to multiply by 4. I'm going to do it to both sides. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I'm left with 1x equals 20 times 4, which is 80. I can check that by plugging that back into my original equation. 80 divided by 4 is 20. 20 plus 5 is 25, so I know I did my equation correctly. These next 6 questions are more two-step equations, so I will start by drawing my line on the equal sign. Now, the difference between these and the last set is that you have to do something. You have to simplify before you can start solving. So for example, on 23, I see a number next to the parentheses. That is my clue that I need to distribute. I need to multiply that 5 by each of these terms on the inside. So 5b and then 5 times 6 is 30. So 5b plus 30 equals 18. So I just simplified before I started solving. Now I can solve it like normal. Now it looks like a two-step equation. So I'm going to get rid of the plus 30 with a minus 30. I'm going to do it to both sides. When I simplify, I'm left with 5b equals negative 12. That's a 5 times the b, so I'm going to get rid of that by undoing the times 5 with the divide by 5. I'm going to do that to both sides. 12 divided by 5 is 2.4, and it's negative divided by positive, so the answer will be negative 2.4 for b. I can always plug that back into the original equation to check. On 24, I see an equation, so I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equals to separate it. I see I have 1/2 on the outside of parentheses, so I'm going to need to distribute that to each of the terms on the inside. So I have half of 6, which is 3, and that's how many g's there are, plus half of 2, which is 1, equals 12. Now I'm going to look for the variable g, and I'm going to undo all the operations being done to it. So if I knew what g was, I would multiply by 3, then add 1. So I've got to get rid of those things in reverse. I'm going backwards. So I'm going to subtract 1 to get rid of the plus 1. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So I'm left with 3g equals 11. I see a 3 next to that g, which means it's being multiplied. So I'm going to divide by 3 to get rid of it. I'm left with g equals 3.6, and that 6 is repeating. So I'm going to put a line over top of it. On 25, I see an equation, so I'm going to draw my line down the equals, and I'm going to look for anything I can do on each side. I see a 4 next to parentheses, so I'm going to distribute the 4. That gives me negative 8m plus 24, and I'm going to bring down everything else. So I've got a 6m, and I have a 10 on the other side of the equal sign. I'm still going to look, see if I can combine anything. I see 6m's take away 8m's. I can combine those like terms. That would leave me with negative 2m's, and I just brought down the plus 24 and the equals 10. Now I have a two-step equation I can solve. I need to get rid of the plus 24 first, and if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Now I'm left with a negative 2m on the left, and that equals negative 14 on the right. I see a negative 2 times the m, so I need to get rid of that times negative 2 by dividing by negative 2. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. So I'm left with m equals positive 7. I can plug that number back into my original equation to check, and I should end up with 10. I do, so I know I'm correct. For number 26, I see an equation, so I'm going to draw my line down the equals. I see a number next to parentheses, so I'm going to distribute. Negative 9 times negative 1p is a positive 9p, plus negative 9 times 6, which is negative 54. Now I'm just going to bring down that 45, and now I have a two-step equation to solve. I want to get rid of that minus 54, or the negative 54 first. I do that by adding 54, and I have to do it to both sides. I'm left with 99 equals 9 times p. Since it's times, I'm going to have to divide to get rid of it. So now I'm left with 11 equals p. I know that I'm correct because when I plug in 11 into the original equation, I end up with 45. So I'm correct. For number 27, I see an equation, so I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equals. I want to point out that since you see a number next to the parentheses, you're going to multiply, but you're going to multiply by that negative 2 because it is a minus 2 or a negative 2. So you should be distributing that negative 2 to each of those terms. That gives me negative 10a plus 6. Now I'm going to bring everything else down, and I'm going to see if there's any like terms I can combine. 28 plus 6 is something I can do, so I'm going to go ahead and do it and bring everything else down. Now I'm solving a two-step equation, and I want to get rid of everything around the a. So if I knew what the a was, I would multiply by negative 10, then add 34. So I'm going to get rid of that positive 34 first. So I'm going to do that by subtracting a 34 since it is a positive 34. And if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. So I'm left with negative 10a's on the left and a positive 13 on the right. I'm trying to get the a by itself, and it's being multiplied by negative 10. So I'm going to do the opposite of times negative 10, which is divide by negative 10. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. When I isolate the variable, I know that A equals negative 1.3. I can plug that back into my original equation for A to check. On number 28, I see an equation, so I'm going to start by drawing my line down the equals. I find my variable R, and if I knew what R was, I would divide by 3, then I would add 17. Since I'm solving for a variable, I'm going to undo everything that's being done. I have to work backwards. So I'm going to get rid of that positive 17 or the plus 17. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other side. I'm left with R over 3 on the left and 11 on the right. I see that R is being divided by 3, so I'm going to do the inverse operation. I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. That cancels on the left, and on the right, that makes 33. So I'm left with 1R equals 33. That's my final answer, and I know that's right because I can plug it back in for the R to check. Number 29 is a question about home improvement, and we're going to write an equation to represent the situation. It is asking me to find the cost of 1 square foot. So that is my variable. And I'm going to represent that with the variable X. Looking at the words in this problem, I know there's a lot of numbers and words, but I know that up front there's an $80 installation fee. It costs $80 right away. That way you can get them to your house. Now that's going to be added on to the 60 square feet. We don't know how much 1 square foot costs. That's our variable. I know it's being multiplied because that's how much it costs per square foot. Per is the key word there. And then in total, that ends up equaling $287. This is my equation, and I'm done. Number 30 is a question about cost and donuts. We're going to write an equation for that situation. Since it asks us to find the cost of a donut, that is our variable. I'm going to represent that with the variable X. I know that together, the cost of the milk and the donuts is going to add up to be $6.90. So that's going to be my total. I know that for sure. So off to the side, I might write 6.9 or 6.90. I know that the cartons of milk cost $1.25 each, and she bought 3. So I'm going to do 3 times $1.25 because I can do that. That's $3.75. So she spent $3.75 on the milk, and then she buys her donuts. So she adds that cost to the 6 donuts, and we do not know how much each donut costs. That's going to be your X. And I know it's being multiplied because it's cost per donut. So my equation should be $3.75 plus 6X equals $6.90. 31 is super hard. It's very tricky. The word that you might not know is consecutive. That means back to back. So 6 and 7 are consecutive integers. 9 and 10 are consecutive. And my goal in this problem is to find those 2 integers, those 2 numbers that are in a row. I know that they're in a row. That means like 8 and 9 are one more than the other one. So I can write that as x plus 1 to find the consecutive integers. And it tells me in the problem, it's the sum of the smaller and 6 times the larger. So one number and 6 times that other number, which we said was x plus 1, equals negative 29. That is my equation for this super, super hard problem. 32 is also a little bit tricky. Mr. Peters bought 8 shrubs and trees. So we don't know how much of each he purchased. We know that in total, it was $260. We know that the trees were 110. And the question's asking us to find the number of shrubs purchased. That's our variable. And I'll use the X to represent that. So we don't know how many shrubs exactly, but we know that each one of them was $25. So I'm going to write this as 25x. That word each is my clue that that's my multiplier. It's 25 times the number of shrubs plus the 110 for the trees equals 260 in total. For the last 4 problems, we're doing the same thing we just did, setting up the problem as an equation and then solving it. In 33, we're looking at price of a film festival. It says that up front, the first ticket is $16. So $16 up front. Each additional ticket, so the word additional tells me I'm going to add, each says I'm going to multiply by $11. I don't know how many film tickets there are. So 11x, but I do know a total because he spent $71. That's my equation. 16 for the first one, and additional $11 per each ticket after that, and that x is my variable. In total, he spent $71. Now I can draw my line on the equals and start solving this. So I'm going to take off the 16 for the first ticket. So I have 11x equals 55. Now I'm going to divide by 11 on both sides, and I'm left with x equals 5. That means that he got 5 tickets. Let's look at 34. We're looking for the price of 1 pair of socks, and there is socks and scarves being purchased. We know the price of the scarves is 12, so we're going to add that to the price of the socks. We don't know how much the socks cost, but socks come in pairs. There's 2 pairs. So 2x is going to be my variable, And there's 5 sisters doing this. So 5 sisters are making this purchase. So each of them is getting this situation with the scarves and the socks. In total, they're going to pay $125 for all 5 sisters. This is my equation. Now I'm going to draw my line down the equals and start solving this. I would start by distributing that 5 so we can figure out how much each sister pays. 60 plus 10x equals 125. And then I'm going to take away the 60 from both sides. I'm left with 10x equals 65. So I'm going to divide by 10. I get 6.5. The question was asking what's the price of one pair of socks. So this is a price, so I should put dollars, $6.50 per one pair. For 35, we're trying to figure out how old this person, Asher, is. We're going to use the variable A to represent Asher's age. We know that Asher's sister is 8 years older than Asher, so Asher plus 8. And then together, their ages add up to 20. So we're going to add up the age of Asher with Asher's sister. That's going to equal 20. So I'll draw my line down the equals, and I want to combine any like terms. I have 2a's plus 8 equals 20. I want to get rid of that plus 8 first by subtracting 8 on both sides. So I'm left with 2a equals 12. Now I see a times 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I'm left with a equals 6. That means that Asher is 6 years old. The sister is 8 years older than that. 36 is really difficult, so let's take this apart. Let's start by writing an expression for the length. It says it's 4 less than 3 times the width. So 4 less means minus 4. 3 times the width. We'll say the width is W. In a rectangle, there are 2 sides that have a length of that. So we're going to put times 2 on there. And then we're going to add that to the width. We don't know the width, so we're going to keep that as the W. We know together the perimeter is 72. Now I'll draw my line on the equals and simplify what I can first. So I'm going to distribute that 2 to each of those terms. I'm going to combine any like terms. So 6W plus 2W, that's 8W minus 8 equals 72. I need to get rid of that minus 8 with a plus 8. So I'm left with 8W equals 80. That means that I need to divide by 8 now to get that W by itself. When I have the W by itself, I know the width is 10. The question was asking me for the dimensions. If I have the width is 10, I know that the length is 4 less than 3 times that. So 30 minus 4 is 26. So the width is 10 feet. The length is 26 feet. All right, guys, that's it. If you made it to this video, please let me know if you have any questions about your test. Good luck. Bye.